Okay, you made it to video 3. I don't know why you're still here, but you're still here, and I'm proud of you. I don't know the exact schedule for when we're going to release all of these things. And when I say we, I just mean me and my multiple personalities, because there's nobody else that is a part of this. We're going to jump into Genesis. I promise I will do a video that starts there and we start rolling through it. But I also want to give a little glimpse into how I feel about the New Testament, because I get a lot of criticism sometimes that I'm too Old Testament heavy and I don't really think that the New Testament matters as much. Or I get flack because I think the Old Testament matters. And a lot of Christians and pastors don't. They don't think you should pay any attention to it. The only thing we have to worry about now is Jesus and love and grace. And once we're saved, everything's good. We can live however we want to. I don't believe that to be true. And I don't believe that's what God's word says. Uh, so I want to explore the book of Acts. We will get there, I promise. The book of Acts is kind of a bridge from the Old Testament to the New Testament. It was written by Luke, but it is where we find out most of the information about Paul, who Paul is, not just what Paul thought and how he felt about things. We also find out a lot about Peter, and also the fact that they didn't leave their Jewish heritage or their Jewishness at all. For them, the Messiah, Yeshua, Jesus, was the answer to all the Old Testament prophets, everything that it was pointing to. So the difference between Jews that believe in Jesus and Jews that don't, and if you're one of these people, don't get upset with me. This is a very simplistic way of looking at it, but I want you to learn. Sorry, I like to hit the mic too. I'm going to try not to do that. The big difference is some Jews believed he was the Messiah and the answer to all the prophets and all of that. Some Jews believe he was just one of many that came along and claimed that. So that's basically the divide. Now, there are many, many, many more divides. It's not that simple, but that's kind of how we get there. The context is so important that if we read Paul's letters before we understand the book of Acts, we will think he thought a different way. But learning Acts, especially chapter 10 with Peter's vision and chapter 15 with the things that are expected of us, if we don't do that, we won't really know the context of Paul's letter. Now, a person told me once, a person I used to respect, I obviously don't anymore, but he told me once that the Old Testament didn't matter as much. We were New Testament Christians. And maybe that's how you feel. I'm not trying to make you feel bad. I just want you to follow along. Being a New Testament Christian is not a thing. And you will learn that, I promise. Because you need the Old Testament in order to get to the New Testament. The Old Testament is the foundation of the Bible. Uh, the New Testament is basically, and I'm oversimplifying, but it's commentary on who the Messiah is. Everything in the Old Testament pointed towards this. And the New Testament answers that question, tells us who the Messiah actually is. So, about 50% of the statements in the New Testament are quotes from the Old Testament. Jesus says this in John 5:46 and 47. If you believed Moses, you would believe me, for he wrote of me. So Genesis is the story of God creating the world, and that's where we'll start. Acts is the bridge into the New Testament. We'll get there eventually. If you're still sticking around 4 and some odd minutes or seconds later, God bless you. I promise. I will say I promise a lot. And most of the time, it'll come true. God bless. We'll talk to you soon.